All right, the April 2026 jobs report was published this week. The headline number 115,000 jobs added, right? That sounds pretty good, but underneath it, a pattern that has been building for 18 months just became impossible to ignore. And I don't think this is going to surprise anybody because you guys have been hearing about this for quite some time now. The job market is healing. Construction is hiring. Trades are hiring. Manufacturing is hiring. However, it's the office that is the only thing that is bleeding. Once again, knowledge based work in front of a computer, that is the biggest risk for AI. And we'll get into more of that. Here is what the data actually shows. Sector by sector, professional and business services, the broad category that covers finance, legal consulting, admin, and architecture saw layoffs rise by 150,000 year on year in the most recent BLS data. AI was cited as the direct cause of 26% of April's job cuts, the highest share that has ever been recorded in the monthly Challenger job cuts report. Healthcare announced 23,520 job cuts in the first quarter of 2026, the worst Q1 on record for that sector. Journalism, 500 plus jobs gone in the first 3 months of the year, building on more than 3,400 cuts over the past 12 months. Now look at where the job market is growing. Construction, hiring, installation, maintenance, and repair. Hiring, physical trades across almost every category. Hiring. The task automation exposure data explains the gap precisely. Office and administrative support has a 46% automation share. Legal, 44%. Architecture and engineering, 37%. Construction, 6%. Physical maintenance, 4%. The pattern is not random. The jobs market exposed to AI are the ones performed entirely on a screen. The ones least exposed require physical presence in the real world. So, if you've been paying any attention to AI, you've probably heard this, right? You've probably heard that white collar jobs are at risk. Anything in front of a computer, no matter how important or how good you think you are at your job, AI just is capable, and if not now, will be capable of doing a better, faster job. No matter how much cope you try to sprinkle on it and how much you try to, complain and say that, oh, it can't do this, can't do that, the stats are here. The statistics basically say what's happening. And I've been calling for a lot of this for the last 2 or 3 years. I've been saying knowledge based, think of a backup job, think of something that you can do that requires physical. For me, I don't do it anymore, but I, for many years, was a surf instructor, surf guide. I still surf every day. But I prefer to work on a computer and do this kind of stuff because it interests me. But I know that AI can take this. But I work for myself. And that's the other thing. One man solopreneurs is going to be a big part of the upcoming future in the next 2 years. Because one man with AI is going to be able to outperform a lot of these big, slow moving, slow to adopt AI organizations. All right. So the predictions have been in the room for a while. The data is now confirming them. In February 2026, Mustafa Suleyman, CEO of Microsoft AI, one of the 3 or 4 people with the most direct visibility into how this technology is actually being developed at enterprise scale, said that virtually all white-collar tasks would be automated within 18 months. That's crazy to think that. I mean, obviously, it's a bold, shocking statement, but it's not going to be all. Probably not even all in 5 years, but it's going to be most. He named accounting, legal, marketing, and project management specifically. Dario Amodei has put the possibility of AI eliminating half of all entry-level white-collar jobs on record, with unemployment potentially reaching 10 to 20% in the scenario where the transition moves faster than policy responds. Goldman Sachs research puts 300 million jobs globally exposed to automation and 25% of all U.S. work hours. Yale research shows entry-level hiring in AI exposed jobs as already down 13% since large language models became widely available. Workers aged 22 to 25 in AI exposed occupations are seeing 6 to 16% falls in employment, driven by a slowdown in hiring, not an increase in hiring. The hiring slowdown is the part that doesn't make headlines but matters most. Companies are not replacing the people who leave. I mean, think of it like this. If you've ever owned a business that requires people, especially people to do administrative tasks, which I've had a team of like 15, 20 people that were worked for me, virtual assistants, developers from like 3 different countries. And that's better than having a bunch of Americans in an office in the sense that it's cheaper and they tend to be a lot more serious and grateful about the job they have, so they take it much more seriously. However, and the reason why I say it's better than having a bunch of people, and not just Americans, it could be any group in an office. When you're in an office full of people and you see them every day, lunch break, showing up for work, leave, after work, you deal with all the drama that people have because people are people. And from a business standpoint, when you're trying to survive and you're trying to grow a business, people suck. They really do. The majority do. There are all-star employees that can make your business, but for the most part, it is a nightmare if you do not love operations, dealing with everybody's problems, hiring, firing, catching people stealing. And you can totally make sense that if a company has the opportunity to work with an AI that is just going to be obedient and work 24/7 and get more work done for cheaper, obviously they're going to take that route because after all, the point of a business is to try to make money. I mean, as a human, I can tell you this because I've owned multiple physical brick and mortar businesses. And there's been so many times where I knew an employee wasn't very good, but I kept them on because I felt bad for them, or I knew they wouldn't be able to find a job, or I thought maybe if I just keep, pressuring, if I keep working with them, they'll get better and they'll try harder and they'll care more. And they don't, and you eventually just lose enough money, and then you just kind of go, I got to make this move, I got to let you go, I can't hire. And then you get this trauma, you start to get this trauma about hiring people, and then you become really particular about who you hire. It becomes a pain in the ass. So my point is I can totally understand like that element of it, not just the work side of it, but it's the drama of it, and you can be more efficient. I can see how people will choose they're going to choose that. They're going to choose the latter. All right. So here's a question that data raises for a 40 plus professional, and the answer is more specific than most people expect. The job losses are concentrated in the entry and mid-level of AI exposed professions. The hiring slowdown is at the junior end. The workers aged 22 to 25 are the ones seeing 6 to 16% employment falls. This is not a coincidence. It is the market moving AI into the tasks that junior employees used to learn on, used to sharpen their swords on and get their experience. Research, drafting, analysis, first pass review, these are now AI tasks. The people who built 20 years of judgment, relationship capital, and pattern recognition on top of those tasks are in a different position, but only if they know how to name and position what they actually have. Experience that is expressed as I know how to do the thing AI now does cheaper is not valuable. Experience expresses I know whether the output is right. I know the client's actual situation. I know what happened last time this came up. That is the remaining human premium. The distinction is not obvious. Making it explicit is the work. So, yes, you go back 5 years and there was a constant systematic churning of how people would come into organizations, right? The juniors would come in, they would get their experience, they work cheaper, they're not as reliable, they might have a lot of energy, they might try really hard, and then they slowly gain that experience and they get better at their job. But a lot of those tasks are going to AI because it's cheaper, faster, easier. And AI can be trained to automate specific things and do it quick. So how's that going to, what's going to happen? If you, in order to be a experienced older executive that has, the ability to see things and just sense things before they happen and fix things and just knowing exactly how to do it, you're going to have less and less of those people because they're not going to be coming in young and early. So how's that going to affect jobs? I don't know. To be honest, not sure. But I will say one thing. When we look at every technological revolution that has come through, it always um, wipes out a lot of jobs and creates a whole bunch of new ones that nobody even they didn't even have names for. I mean, before the computer came in and the internet came in, being a developer wasn't really a thing. You know, being a coder, there was a few people that might have, did some coding on some of the old systems, but it just wasn't really something. It's a weird kind of almost occupation that nobody even knew about. And then let's move forward and let's look at social media influencers. That came out of nowhere. Wasn't didn't exist. I remember a world before social media influencer was even a word or a term. And then you go back 10 years ago, and that was like one of the most they would ask a lot of like junior high school kids, what do you want to do when you grow up, graduate? And I mean, we're talking, this is like 6 to 10 years ago. The number one answer was, I want to be a I want to be a YouTuber, or I want to be a social media influencer. That became the thing, and there's everybody's one now, right? You go back another 10 years, 15 years before that, so that's 20 years from today. You go back 20, 25 years, and everybody wanted to be what? Rappers, and they wanted to be professional basketball players, football players. And now being a professional athlete, it's even an actor. Everybody wanted to be models and actors. That was like the dream. Like, wow, I wish I could be that. Well, anybody can be an actor. You just start a YouTube channel and you can get exposure if you have a weird little niche. So, anyways, my point is there will be new jobs made and created, because you can't just have a few jobs making all the money and everybody else not making money, because then who's going to buy their products? There has to be a way to distribute the money to the people, so the companies that make the money have people to pay them. So it's not in anybody's best interest to just get rid of all employees across the board so nobody has a job, because then you don't have an economy, right? So anyways, my point is there will be, mark my words, in the next 5 to 10 years, there will be at least 2 or 3, 4 job titles that didn't exist. I mean, right now, and I called this out 2.5 years ago. I said, AI operator that's going to be a thing. You know, you're the one that teaches people and companies how to learn how to use AI, and you manage and help, and you operate the AI, and you are the expert, an AI operator. And that exact term is now, I've seen it thrown around all over the place, learn to be an AI operator. And what's going to happen is all these solopreneurs that are really good at becoming AI operators, they're going to be headhunted, and companies are going to be trying to throw a lot of money at them because they're going to be so efficient, and they're going to be like, we need those solopreneurs that are able to do one-man shows for our big organization. And the solopreneurs are going to be like, show me the money. All right, 3 moves, all grounded in what the April data actually shows. First, reframe your experience in terms of output evaluation, not output production. You are not the person who writes the brief. You are the person who knows whether the brief is right. You are not the person who produces the analysis. You are the person who catches what the analysis missed, or the person who knows exactly what should be analyzed. That reframe changes the conversation you have with clients and employers, and it reflects where the actual value sits in an AI augmented workflow. Second, treat the hiring freeze at the junior level as an opportunity, not just a warning. If companies are not replacing junior roles with humans, they are replacing them with AI tools. And those tools need operators. Didn't I just say this? Who understand the domain. AI operators in your field is a role that is emerging in every sector. The April data flagged as most exposed. It's pretty funny how I just said that. And that is the next part right here. That job title did not exist 3 years ago. Once again, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Third, you are a solopreneur. The April report is your competitive context. The people who used to compete with you at the junior and mid-level of your profession are being structurally removed from the market. The clients they were serving still exist. The question is whether you are positioned to serve them, or whether you are in the same part of the market as the people disappearing. One of the biggest problems right now about being an AI operator is, you would think everybody's on AI. And to some degree, a lot of people are, but they're not really utilizing 95% of what its capabilities are. They just think, oh, I get on ChatGPT. I have a couple apps that I use that use AI, and I'm doing that. You're just scratching the surface. You're just scratching the surface. Anyways, my point is most businesses don't really have the time to really learn and stay on top of AI, like those of us who have YouTube channels about AI, those of us that are solopreneurs that have to be on top of whatever is the most efficient way for a one-man show or a two-man show to operate. These other businesses that have been around for a while, they're set in their ways. And if you try to educate them and explain to them, hey, I think that I can help you with AI, and a lot of times you get that it's an immune response, they call that, in companies, where when you try to tell them something and they're afraid that it's going to somehow make them lose their job. So if you go into a company and you're not talking to the boss and you're telling them, hey, I want to bring A into your company, they're going to shuffle you aside and be like, sure, we'll pass the message along. So if you're going to go in and you're trying to sell AI operator, make sure you're talking to who's in charge, because if you're talking to a secretary or you're talking to somebody who knows that their job could be at risk, chances are your message will never get sent to the right person. All right, the April jobs report is not a prediction. It is evidence. The office's contract is contracting. The trades are growing. AI is now the most cited reason for job cuts on record. And we all knew this was going there. The copers and the people there that just don't want it, they don't want to believe, they just don't want it to happen, are going to try their hardest to argue it, but you cannot argue with reality. The 40-plus professional who understands this clearly, not with fear, with accuracy, is the one position to move correctly. And there you have it. You know what to do. So we're going to keep covering topics like this: disruption in the workforce, in industries, AI, how AI basically, just where you should be looking, and hopefully we can find clues before the herd. I've always done that my whole life, is I've spotted things. Usually I'm either 1 month late or I'm 2 years too early. And when you're too early and you're trying to sell something too early, nobody listens. And then you come back and then you're a month too late. And that's the hard part, I think, is really selling the idea of what can be done, because it's just such a new world for so many people. All right, guys, we're going to end this video. Until the next video, hit that subscribe button, and let's dive into some more of these topics, and keep it coming and stay on top of it, so I can bring you the clues that'll give you the information you need so that you can beat the herd and get there before everybody else.